to the first episode of the third parties on every Wednesday of December. Now am I thinking, why Wednesday? Well, this year, 2025, New Year's Eve is going to happen on a Wednesday. So in order to time it up perfectly, I decided to do Wednesdays. So, first is the Progressive Bull Moose Party. So, this third party was from 1912 to either 1918 or 20. So this is when he got had assassination attempt. As you guys can see, there's a hole here and a hole here. The bullet lodged through his abdomen but didn't harm him. And this was the speech he was giving when he was shot. So here's the introduction. Actually, what did he wear? He was green. The Progressive Party, popularly nicknamed the Bull Moose Party, was a third party in the United States formed in 1912 by former President Theodore Roosevelt after he lost the presidential nomination of the Republican Party to his former protege turned rival, incumbent President William Howard Taft. The new party was known for taking advanced positions on progressive reforms and attracting leading new national reformers. The party was also ideologically deeply connected with America's radical liberal tradition. After the party's defeat in the 1912 election, it ran into rapid decline until 1918, disappearing by 1920. The Bull Moose nickname originated when Roosevelt voiced that he felt strong as a bull moose after losing the Republican nomination in June 1912 at the Chicago Convention. So here is the 1912 result. He only got 88 votes, but it's kind of crazy. They actually beat the incumbent because the incumbent only got 2 states. And then, yeah, that's what the election looked like. And this is the 1912 convention of the Progressive Party. As a member of the Republican Party, Roosevelt had served as president from 1901 to 1912, becoming increasingly progressive in the later years of his presidency. In the 1908 presidential election, Roosevelt helped ensure that he would be succeeded by Secretary of War Taft. Although Taft entered office determined to advance Roosevelt's Square Deal domestic agenda, he stumbled badly due to the Payne Aldrich Act debate and the Pentecost ballot controversy. The political fallout of these events divided the Republican Party and alienated Roosevelt from his former friend. Progressive leader Robert M. La Follette had already announced a challenge to Taft for the 1912 Republican nomination, but many of his supporters stated to Roosevelt after the former president declined to seek a third presidential term, which was permitted under the Constitution prior to the ratification of the 22nd Amendment. At the 1912 Republican National Convention, Taft narrowly defeated Roosevelt for the party's presidential nomination. After the convention, Roosevelt thanked immensely George Walbridge Perkins and other progressive Republicans established the Progressive Party and nominated the figure of Roosevelt and Hiram Johnson of California. At the 1912 Progressive National Convention, the new party attracted several Republican office holders, although nearly all of them remained loyal to the Republican Party in California. Johnson and the Progressives took control of the Republican Party. The party's platform built on Roosevelt Square Deal domestic program and called for several progressive reforms. The party asserted to dissolve the unholy alliance between corrupt business and corrupt politics is the first act of the statement of the day. The proposal on the Proposals on the platform include restriction on campaign finance, contribute a reduction of tariffs, and the establishment of a social insurance system, an 8-hour workday, and movement suffrage. The party was split on the regulation of large corporations. Mr. Party members disappointed that the platform did not contain a stronger call for trust busting. Party members also had a different outlook on foreign policy, with pacifists like Jane Addams opposing Roosevelt's call for Labour. But this is Jane Addams, was I actually did not double check this, so I actually just put one on Google, so I actually don't know if this is correct. Alright, hold on. In the 1912 election, Roosevelt won 24.4% of the popular vote. 2 compared to Taft's. I need to change colors every single time just to make it more sense. 23.2. Making Roosevelt the only third-party nominee to finish with a higher share of the popular vote than a major party's presidential nominee. Both Taft and Roosevelt finished behind Democratic nominee Woodrow Wilson, who won 41.8% of the popular vote. Well, it's just of the popular vote and the vast majority of the electoral vote. The Progressives elected several congressional and state legislative candidates, but in the election was marked primarily by Democrat gains. The 1916 Progressive National Convention was held in conjunction with the 1916 Republican National Convention in hopes of unifying the parties, with Roosevelt as the presidential nominee of both parties. The Progressive Party collapsed after Roosevelt refused the Progressive nomination and insisted his supporters vote for Charles E. Hughes, the moderately progressive Republican nominee. Most progressives joined the Republican Party, but some converted to the Democrat Party, and progressives such as Harold E. L. Licks would play a role in President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's administration. In 1924, Robert M. La Follette set up another Progressive Party for his presidential run. This is the policy we'll be talking about in the second episode. We won't be talking about the third one because it's kind of not that much because they didn't win any electoral votes. A third Progressive Party was set up in 1948 for the presidential campaign of his former Vice President Henry Ackland Wallace. So here's the electoral. You can see Roosevelt did mainly good in like the states. Maine. Taft did good in the New England states and also in the Midwest. And Wilson did good in basically everywhere, and including the South. Look at that. Mississippi, all counties. Losing to President Taft. Roosevelt selected Taft, his Secretary of War, to succeed him as the presidential candidate because he thought Taft closely mirrored his own positions. Taft easily won the 1908 presidential election over William Jennings Bryan. Roosevelt became disappointed by Taft's increasingly progressive policies. Roosevelt was outraged when Taft used the Southern Antitrust Act to sue the U.S. Steel for an action that President Roosevelt had explicitly approved. They became openly hostile, and Roosevelt decided to seek the presidency in early 1912. Taft was already being challenged by progressive leader Senator Robert M. La Follette of Wisconsin. Most of La Follette's supporters switched to Roosevelt, leaving the Wisconsin senator impotent. 9 of the states where progressive elements were strongest had set up preference primaries, which Roosevelt won, but Taft worked harder than Roosevelt to control the Republican Party organization, operations, and the mechanism for choosing its presidential nominee. The 1912 Presidential Republican National Convention. For example, he brought up the votes of the delegates from the Southern states, copying the technique Roosevelt used himself in 1904. The RNC rejected Roosevelt's proposal, and then Roosevelt and its supporters walked out, and the convention re-nominated Taft. This is Roosevelt and Taft fighting against each other. Oh wait, a new party. The next day, the voters supposedly met to form a new political party of their own. California Governor Hiram Johnson became its chairman, and a new convention was scheduled for August. Most of the funding came from wealthy sponsors. Magazine publisher Frank A. Munsey provided $138,000 and finances towards the Republicans. Gave $130,000. Roosevelt's family gave $77,500 and others gave $164,000. The total was nearly $600,000, with far less than the major parties. The leadership of the new party at the level just below Roosevelt included Jane Allen to Hall Horse, a leader in social work, feminism, and pacifism. Former Senator Albert J. Beveridge of Indiana, a leading advocate of regulating industry, Guilford Pinnacle, a leading environmentalist, and as well as Amos Pinto, enemy of the trust, and then they represented the Democratic element in. These include Frank Mosley and Frank Knox, who was the Republican vice presidential nominee candidate in 1960, only to get absolutely butt-kicked by Roosevelt's cousin. 523 to 8. The two main organizers were Senator Joseph M. Dixon of Montana and especially towards the Republicans, a senior partner of the Morgan Bank who came from the efficiency movement. He and Munsey provided financing while Perkins took efficient charge of the new party organization. However, Perkins' close tie to Wall Street made him deeply distrusted by many party activists. The new party has serious structural defects. Since it existed on running complete tickets against the regular Republican ticket in most states, Republican politicians were had to abandon the Republican Party to support Taft. The exception was California, where the progressive element had controlled the Republican Party, and Taft was not even on the November ballot. Nationally, only 5 of the 15 most progressive Republican senators joined the new party. Republican legislators, governors, national committees, publishers, and editors showed considerable reluctance as bolstering the old party was characterized as suicide. Very few Democrats ever joined the new party. However, many independent reformers still signed up. As a result, most of Roosevelt's previous political allies supported Taft, including his son-in-law, Republican Representative Nicholas Longworth of Cincinnati. His wife Alice Roosevelt Longworth was Roosevelt's most energetic cheerleader. The public dispute permanently spoiled the marriage. Here's the convention. They voted for. Despite these obstacles, the August convention opened with great enthusiasm. Over 2,000 delegates attended, including many women. In 1912, neither Taft nor Roosevelt endorsed women's suffrage on the national level. The notable suffrage and social worker Jane Addams gave a 6-minute speech for Roosevelt's nomination, but Roosevelt insisted on including back-in-time faction Republicans from the South, whom he regarded as a corrupt and ineffective element. Then he aligned white Southern supporters, the Lily White movement, on the eve of the election by publicly dining with black people at the Rhode Island Hotel. Roosevelt was nominated by acclamation, with Johnson as his running mate. The main work of the convention was a platform which set forth the new party appeal to the voters. It included a broad range of social and political reform, long advocated by progressives. It spoke with new religious favor, and the candidate himself promised our cause is based on the eternal principle of rightness. And even though we, who now lead, may for the time fall, in the end cause itself social wrong. The platform's main theme was reversing the domination of politics by business interests, which allegedly controlled the Republican and Democratic parties alike. So this is what the platform asserted. So this is half an hour to fit all of them. to destroy the invisible government, to dissolve the unholy alliance between corrupt business and corrupt politics, is the first of the statements of the day. The platform called for. Okay, I'm actually just gonna let you guys read it because I don't feel like reading all of this. I mean, it's fine. I can read. Pause the video if you want to read this. Okay? So in elections. So there's one subheading according to Wikipedia. So the next slide will have the subheading. So before we go to the subheading, here's the election result. So it's votes were won 7 plus 11 plus 5 plus 12 plus 15 plus 38, giving him a total of 88 votes. Taft, on the other hand, only managed to receive 8 votes, which is 4 and 4. Wilson was able to receive 5 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3 and so forth. So 435, 88, 8. Alright. 1912. Roosevelt ran a vigorous campaign, but the campaign was short of money as the business interests which had supported Roosevelt in 1904 either backed other candidates or stayed neutral. Roosevelt was also handicapped because he had already served nearly 2 full terms as president and was challenging the unwritten no third term rule. And Roosevelt fell far short of money. He won 27%, Wilson won 42%, and Taft won 23%. 6% of it went to Socialist Eugene Debs. Roosevelt received 88 votes compared to 435 for Wilson and 8 for Taft. This was nonetheless the best showing for any third party since the Mullen two-party system was established in 1864. Roosevelt was the only third-party candidate output or candidate of an established party. The Republicans split with decision to allow Wilson to win the presidency. In addition to Roosevelt's presidential campaign, hundreds of other candidates sought office as progressive in 1912. 21 ran for governor. Over 200 ran for U.S. representative. The exact number, however, is not clear, and the reason why is because there were many Republican progressive candidates, and some candidates valiantly with FR host groups such as Boone Moose Republican, or in Pennsylvania, the Washington Party. So basically, on October 14, 1912, he was campaigning in Milwaukee, and he was shot by John Grant, but the British lodged in the 50-page copy of the speech, and this is the speech, and yeah. However, unlike most people where they immediately get help, Roosevelt finished his speech and then went to the hospital. Both Taft and Wilson suspended their own campaigning until Roosevelt recovered and resumed his. He said, "I'm fit as a Boone Moose," which gave him the nickname. He actually, he already lost a bid for re-election. State and local operations. Read the subheading down below. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So, yeah, it's 3 elections, and then 1 state, and then 1 later. So most of the progressive candidates were from New York, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, or Massachusetts. Very few of them were in the South. So normally the progressive candidates generally got between 10 and 30% of the vote. 9 progressives were elected to the House and none won governorships. About 250 progressives were elected to local offices. In November, the Democrats benefited from the Republican split. Very few Democrats voted for the progressive candidates. They gained many state legislative seats with greater attendance in the U.S. Senate seats. They also gained 63 House seats. 1914. Despite the second place finish of 1912, by 1914 they were fading away, and the Republicans regained much of their strength. A 138 candidates, including women, ran for the House as Progressive in 1914, and 5 were elected. However, almost half the candidates failed to get more than 10% of the vote. So 7 other progressives ran for governor, but none got more than 16%. Some state parties remained fairly strong. So, for example, in Washington, Progressive won a third of the seats in the Washington State Legislature. 1916. This was the time of the second. Also, I'm summarizing everything, but you guys can read on your own. This is at the time of the second nomination. However, they immediately nominated Roosevelt again, but then he refused, and endorsed Charles E. Hughes, and he was immediately approved. However, the Roosevelt Parker ticket still managed to get on the ballot in some states, such as Louisiana and Georgia. John M. Parker was the vice presidential nominee. 1918. Since it is very short, I'm just going to read it. All the remaining progressives in Congress rejoined the Republican Party, except Whitmer Martin, who became a Democrat. No candidates ran as progressive for governor, senator, or representative. So basically, by 1918, the Progressive Party was basically dead. No governor, no representative, and no senator. The goal, except for him, goes here. And later years. Robert M. Blackford broke bitterly with Roosevelt in 1912 and ran for president on his own ticket. The 1924 Progressive Party during the 1924 presidential election. Remember, if you want to know more about this, please wait for next week. From 1916 to 1932, the Taft wing controlled the Republican Party and refused to nominate any 1912 progressives to the Republican national ticket. Finally, Frank Knox was nominated in 1936 for vice president. The relative domination of the Republican Party by conservatives left many former progressives with no route of re-election until the 1930s, when Bush joined the new Democratic Party coalition of President Franklin Roosevelt. Now, two more subheadings in electoral history: congressional elections is basically this, and in presidential elections, which is the major one. So there's a line. No, it's not really clear. I'll draw the line again. Here's the line. So we have the election year numbers. Each one is a more or less, and who is president. So let's start with the House. In 1912, they had 9 seats. In 1914, they had 6 seats. In 1916, by 1916, the Republicans. And by 1916, oh my gosh. By 1916, the Republicans took control, and the Progressives only had 3 seats and 0 by 1918. In the Senate, however, in 1912 they had 0 seats, in 1914 they got 1 seat, and in 1916 they lost their only seat. During all of this, Woodrow Wilson was president. And in the presidential elections, in 1912, the candidate was Theodore Roosevelt with Hiram Johnson. They received 4,122,721, 27.4 AA votes, and Democratic victory. Same in 1916. In 1916, the differences are that John M. Parker was vice president. They only won 30,406 votes, 0.2% of the popular vote, and 0 electoral votes. So they lost all of them. In 1916, Theodore Roosevelt refused the nomination due to both political and personal reasons, and endorsed Charles E. Hughes, the Republican nominee. Office holders. There were at least 21 holders who were part of the Progressive Party at some point in the position. Out of them, 13 U.S. representatives, 2 U.S. governors, 1 lieutenant governor, 1 state treasurer, 1 was a mayor. You can read it on your own, pause the video, but I will go through it. I'll show you the slides very quickly. and in the ending. This was the first episode of the 5 third part in December to sum up the year. So this is the one we're at. Next week we're doing the Boba and Blaufullers. Then we have the Reform Pie, Roosevelt, Dixie Cat, which is Storm Thurmond, and the American Independent Pie with George Wallace. On this one, it will be Christmas Eve themed. On this one, it will be New Year's Eve themed. Some photos about the Progressive Pie with explanations on the next slide. What they will include. And here's the gallery. Also, for this one, the bullet is here. You can see there's a massive hole here and a massive hole here. The bullet went through it. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. Next week we'll be doing the Progressive 1924 Pie. And peace.